What if I told you that your soul knows exactly when you're going to die? Months, sometimes even years before it happens. What if the universe has been sending you subtle signals all along, preparing you for the greatest transition you'll ever make? And what if one of America's most documented psychics discovered 5 unmistakable signs that death is approaching, signs that aren't about disease or accidents, but about your soul getting ready to return home? I'm talking about revelations that go beyond medical diagnosis, beyond what doctors can see, beyond what science currently understands about consciousness in the moment of death. Because according to these insights, death isn't something that happens to you. It's something your soul actively prepares for, and if you know what to look for, you can recognize when this preparation has begun. This isn't about fear. This isn't about morbid fascination. This is about understanding the most profound transition every human being will face, and how recognizing these signs can actually transform how you live right now. So if you've ever wondered whether there's more to death than just the stopping of a heartbeat, if you've questioned whether consciousness really ends when the body fails, if you've felt that mysterious pull towards something greater, stay with me. Because what you're about to discover might change not just how you think about death, but how you experience every moment of life you have left. The universal fear. Let me ask you something that might make you uncomfortable. When was the last time you really thought about your own death? Not the abstract concept, not the philosophical idea, but the actual reality that someday your consciousness as you know it will face the ultimate transition. Maybe you push these thoughts away. Maybe they creep in during quiet moments, late at night when you can't sleep, or during times of illness, or when someone close to you passes away. Maybe you feel that flutter of panic, that existential dread that whispers, "What if this is all there is?" You're not alone in this. Death is the one experience that unites every human being who has ever lived. Yet it remains the greatest mystery we face. We can prepare for almost everything else in life: career changes, relationships, financial challenges. But death. Most of us live in denial, hoping that if we don't think about it, somehow it won't happen. But what if this approach is robbing you of something precious? What if understanding the signs of approaching death, not to fear them, but to recognize them, could actually give you the most meaningful preparation possible for the journey ahead? Because here's what most people don't realize. According to ancient wisdom traditions and modern consciousness research, death isn't a violent interruption of life. It's a carefully orchestrated transition that your soul begins preparing for long before your body shows any signs of failure. And if you know how to read the signs, you can participate consciously in this preparation instead of being caught off guard by it. If this idea intrigues you, if you're ready to explore death not as an enemy but as a teacher, I need you to like this video right now. Because what we're about to explore together requires courage. It requires you to face the one certainty that connects all human experience. And when you hit that like button, you're telling me you're ready for this conversation. The awakening begins. But before we dive into these 5 profound signs, you need to understand something fundamental about consciousness and death that will reframe everything you think you know. Most people believe consciousness comes from the brain, that when the brain stops functioning, awareness simply ends, like turning off a light switch. But what if that's backwards? What if consciousness is primary and the brain is simply its temporary instrument? What if awareness exists independently of physical matter, and death is actually the moment when consciousness expands back into its natural state? This isn't just philosophical speculation. This is what thousands of near-death experiences suggest. This is what ancient wisdom traditions have taught for millennia, and this is what the deeper understanding of these death signs reveals. Your soul, that essential consciousness that you truly are, doesn't die when your body fails. It transitions, it expands. It returns to a state of being that's actually more natural than physical existence. But here's the key insight. This transition doesn't begin at the moment of physical death. It begins much earlier, as your soul starts to loosen its attachment to the physical world and prepare for its return to pure consciousness. Think of it like a butterfly preparing to emerge from its cocoon. The transformation doesn't happen in an instant. There's a process, a preparation, a gradual shifting from one state of being to another. And during this preparation period, your soul sends signals, not just to your body, but to your consciousness. Signs that the great transition is beginning. Invitations to participate consciously in the most important journey you'll ever take. These aren't signs to fear. They're signs to recognize, honor, and work with. Because when you understand what's happening, when you can see the preparation process clearly, you can approach death not as a victim, but as a conscious participant in your own spiritual evolution. The first sign, the pull of solitude. The first sign that your soul is preparing for transition is subtle but unmistakable once you know how to recognize it. You begin to feel a deep, inexplicable pull toward solitude. Not depression, not antisocial behavior, not withdrawal born from pain or illness. This is different. This is a sacred drawing inward, a need to spend time alone that feels almost spiritual in nature. Have you ever noticed how animals often seek solitude when they're preparing to die? They find a quiet place, away from the noise and activity of daily life, and they turn their attention inward. This isn't about hiding or suffering alone. It's about accessing a deeper state of consciousness that requires silence and space. The same thing happens with human souls as they begin preparing for transition. You might find yourself declining social invitations that you would normally enjoy, not because you don't love the people in your life, but because something deeper is calling your attention. You might feel drawn to spend hours in quiet contemplation, or find yourself naturally creating more space between yourself and the busyness of everyday life. This pull toward solitude serves a crucial purpose. It's your soul's way of beginning the process of detachment from external dependencies. It's creating the internal space necessary for the profound letting go that death requires. But here's what's beautiful about recognizing this sign. When you understand what's happening, instead of fighting this pull or feeling guilty about it, you can honor it. You can create conscious space for this deepening. You can use this time for reflection, for healing unfinished emotional business, for connecting with what's most essential in your life. Think about this for a moment. When did you last feel truly drawn to solitude? Not forced isolation, but a genuine desire to be alone with your thoughts, your feelings, your deeper self. If you're experiencing this pull right now, or if you've noticed it in someone you love, let me know in the comments. Write solitude if this resonates with your experience. Because recognizing this pattern is the first step in understanding the deeper wisdom of your soul's preparation and process. The second sign, the dissolving of attachments. The second sign is even more profound, and it often surprises people when they first recognize it. You begin to naturally let go of attachments that once seemed essential to your identity. This doesn't happen all at once. It's a gradual process that can unfold over months or even years. But once it begins, it's unmistakable. You might find yourself losing interest in possessions that once mattered deeply to you. That collection you spent years building, the expensive items you worked so hard to acquire, the material symbols of success that once defined who you thought you were, they begin to feel empty, meaningless. But it goes deeper than material possessions. You might notice that old grudges start to feel pointless. Arguments that once consumed your energy seem petty and unimportant. The need to be right, to defend your ego, to maintain certain images of yourself, These drives begin to fade. Even positive attachments start to loosen. Ambitions that once motivated you might lose their grip. Future plans that once excited you might feel less compelling. Not because you're becoming depressed or giving up on life, but because something in you is recognizing that these external things aren't who you really are. This is your soul beginning the process of remembering its true nature. Because here's what happens when consciousness prepares to expand beyond physical existence. It starts to withdraw energy from the temporary identities and attachments that belong only to this lifetime. It begins to reconnect with what's eternal, what's essential, what travels with you beyond the physical world. And what are those eternal things? Love, wisdom, compassion, connection, the growth of consciousness itself. You might find yourself becoming more interested in these deeper qualities and less interested in the surface dramas that once seemed so important. You might feel drawn to healing relationships rather than winning arguments, to expressing love rather than accumulating achievements, to understanding rather than being understood. This is your soul's way of preparing for the transition by focusing on what's truly valuable, what you'll take with you when the physical world falls away. But here's the transformative part. When you recognize this process and work with it consciously, instead of mourning the loss of old attachments, you can celebrate the emergence of your deeper self. You can use this time to consciously align with what's most essential in your being. The third sign, the opening of perception. Now we come to something that might sound impossible if you haven't experienced it yourself. As the soul prepares for transition, perception often begins to expand beyond the normal boundaries of physical reality. You might start having dreams that feel more real than waking life. Dreams where you encounter deceased loved ones who seem to be preparing you for something. Dreams of places that feel like home in a way that nowhere on earth ever has. You might begin to sense presences around you, not frightening or disturbing, but comforting, as if beings you can't quite see are drawing closer, offering support for the journey ahead. Some people report sudden increases in intuitive abilities, knowing things you shouldn't know, feeling the emotions of others more intensely, having insights about people or situations that prove to be remarkably accurate. Others experience what can only be described as glimpses of other dimensions, moments when the veil between worlds seems to thin, and you catch sight of realities that normally remain hidden. This isn't hallucination, this isn't mental illness, this is consciousness beginning to operate at frequencies that are closer to its natural state. Frequencies that aren't limited by the physical brain's normal filtering mechanisms. Think of it this way. Throughout your life, your consciousness has been focused through the narrow lens of physical perception. But as the soul prepares for transition, this lens begins to widen. You start to perceive aspects of reality that were always there but were previously filtered out. And here's why this happens. The dimension you're preparing to enter, what various traditions call the astral plane, the afterlife, the realm of pure consciousness, operates at these expanded frequencies. Your soul is beginning to tune into its future home, but there's something crucial to understand about this sign. These expanded perceptions aren't random or meaningless. They're specifically designed to prepare you for what's coming. They're glimpses of the reality you'll inhabit after physical death. They're your soul's way of familiarizing you with the expanded awareness that awaits. If you've been experiencing anything like this, if your dreams have become more vivid, if you felt presences around you, if your intuition has suddenly become more accurate, don't dismiss it. Don't let anyone convince you it's just your imagination. These experiences are sacred. They're part of your soul's preparation process, and recognizing them for what they are can help you work with this expanded awareness instead of being frightened by it. Have you noticed your perception expanding in ways that are hard to explain? If so, share this video with someone who might understand, because these experiences can feel isolating when you don't have a framework for understanding them. But when you realize they're part of a natural preparation process, everything changes. The fourth sign, the life review compulsion. The fourth sign is something that happens so commonly that most people don't even notice it's a sign at all. You become compelled to review your life, not just remembering, not just nostalgia, but a deep, almost obsessive need to examine, understand, and make sense of your entire existence from a higher perspective. You might find yourself thinking constantly about pivotal moments from your past, relationships that shaped you, choices that defined your path, mistakes you made and lessons you learned. But you're not just remembering these experiences. You're reviewing them with a wisdom and perspective you didn't have when they originally happened. This often manifests as a sudden desire to reconnect with people from your past, to heal old wounds, to express gratitude that was never spoken, to ask for forgiveness or to offer it, to complete conversations that were left unfinished. You might feel an urgent need to tell your story, to share the lessons you've learned, to pass on the wisdom you've gained, to make sure that the meaning you've discovered in your life doesn't die with you. This isn't random nostalgia. This is your soul engaging in what near-death experience researchers call the life review, a process that typically happens during the transition itself, but which often begins months or years before physical death. And here's why this happens. Your soul knows that consciousness continues after physical death, but it also knows that the specific perspective you've gained in this lifetime, the unique combination of experiences, lessons, and growth that make up your individual journey, is precious and temporary. So it begins the process of integrating these experiences, of extracting their essential meaning, of transforming lived experience into eternal wisdom. But here's the profound part. When you recognize this compulsion for what it is, you can participate in it consciously. Instead of being driven by vague feelings of urgency or regret, you can actively engage in the life review process. You can reach out to people who matter. You can heal relationships that need healing. You can express love that needs expressing. You can complete the business of this lifetime while you still have the opportunity. This isn't about preparing to die in despair. This is about preparing to transition with completeness, with peace, with the knowledge that you've extracted every bit of meaning and love from the extraordinary gift of this human experience. And here's something beautiful. When you engage consciously in this life review process, it doesn't just prepare you for death. It transforms how you live. Because seeing your life from this higher perspective helps you understand what really matters, what was truly important, what deserves your attention in the time you have left. If you're feeling this compulsion to review, to reconnect, to heal and complete, I want you to comment below with the word review. Because this is sacred work, this is soul work, and recognizing it for what it is can help you approach it with the reverence it deserves. The fifth sign, the pull toward home. And now, we come to the most profound sign of all. The one that, once you experience it, leaves no doubt that your soul is preparing for the greatest journey of all. You begin to feel a deep, inexplicable longing for home, but not any earthly home you've ever known. This isn't nostalgia for childhood. This isn't missing a place you used to live. This is something entirely different. It's a longing so deep, so profound, that it seems to come from the very core of your being. People describe it in different ways. Some say it feels like homesickness for a place they've never been. Others describe it as a pull towards something they can't name but somehow recognize. Still others speak of feeling like a traveler who's been away far too long and is finally preparing to return. This longing often manifests in unexpected ways. You might find yourself staring at the sky more often, feeling drawn to its vastness. You might feel inexplicably moved by music, art, or natural beauty. in ways that bring you to tears. You might experience moments of such profound peace that they feel like memories of where you truly belong. And here's what's really happening. Your soul is beginning to remember its true home. Not the physical world where you've been temporarily residing, but the dimension of pure consciousness from which you came and to which you're preparing to return. Because according to the deepest spiritual traditions and the most profound near-death experiences, physical life is actually a temporary journey. We're souls having a human experience, not humans who might have souls. And as the physical journey nears its completion, the soul begins to feel the pull of its eternal home. This isn't sad, this isn't tragic. This is actually the most natural thing in the world. It's like a child who's been away at camp all summer, beginning to feel excited about returning home to family. The camp was wonderful, the experiences were valuable, but home is where you truly belong. But here's what makes this sign so transformative. When you recognize this longing for what it is, instead of being confused or frightened by it, you can embrace it. You can allow yourself to feel the profound peace that comes with knowing you're preparing to return to your true nature. And something miraculous happens when you stop resisting this pull toward home. You begin to experience that eternal home even while you're still in physical form. You start to access the peace, the love, the expanded awareness that awaits you. You get glimpses of who you really are beneath all the temporary identities and roles you've played in this lifetime. The deeper understanding. But let me address something that might be troubling you right now. Because if you're recognizing these signs in yourself or someone you love, you might be feeling afraid. You might be thinking, does this mean death is imminent? Should I be panicking? The answer is both simpler and more complex than you might expect. These signs don't necessarily mean death is days or even months away. The soul's preparation process can unfold over years. Some people experience these signs intensely and then continue living full, meaningful lives for a long time. Others might experience them more subtly over extended periods. The timeline isn't the point. The preparation is the point. Because here's what these signs are really about. They're your soul's way of ensuring that when the transition does come, whether it's next week or next decade, you're ready. Not just physically or practically ready, but spiritually and emotionally ready. And being ready doesn't mean being resigned to death or giving up on life. It means approaching whatever time you have left with greater consciousness, deeper purpose, and more authentic connection to what really matters. When you recognize these signs, you're being given a gift, the gift of conscious preparation, the gift of time to align with your deeper truth, the gift of opportunity to live your remaining time, however long that might be, with extraordinary presence and meaning. Think about this. Most people spend their entire lives unconsciously avoiding thoughts of death, only to be caught completely unprepared when it comes. But these signs offer you something different. They offer you the chance to approach death as a conscious spiritual practice rather than an unwelcome surprise. And here's the paradox. When you prepare consciously for death, you often find that you begin living more fully than you ever have before. Because knowing that this physical experience is temporary makes every moment precious, every relationship sacred, every experience a gift to be fully received. So if you're recognizing these signs, don't retreat into fear. Step forward into presence. Use this awareness to deepen your relationships, to heal what needs healing, to express what needs expressing, to become who you truly are. If this perspective is shifting something in you, if you're beginning to see these signs not as warnings but as invitations, I want you to subscribe to this channel right now. Because what we're exploring here is just the beginning of understanding consciousness, death, and the profound journey of the soul. And I want to make sure you don't miss any of this exploration. The practical wisdom. So what do you do with this knowledge? How do you live differently when you understand these signs? First, if you're experiencing these signs yourself, honor them. Don't fight the pull toward solitude. Use it for reflection and spiritual deepening. Don't resist the loosening of attachments. Celebrate your growing freedom from what doesn't truly matter. Don't dismiss expanded perceptions. Explore them with curiosity and openness. Don't avoid the life review. Engage with it consciously and completely. Don't fear the longing for home. Let it remind you of your true nature. Second, if you're recognizing these signs in someone you love, support them with understanding rather than fear. Don't try to drag them back into attachments they're naturally releasing. Don't dismiss their expanding perceptions as confusion or illness. Don't prevent them from engaging in the life review process. Instead, participate with them. Help them complete what needs completing. Join them in exploring what's opening up. Third, whether you're experiencing these signs now or not, let this knowledge transform how you approach life itself. Because understanding the preparation process for death can actually teach you how to live more consciously. Start practicing the letting go of unnecessary attachments now. Begin cultivating solitude for spiritual reflection. Open yourself to expanded perception and intuitive awareness. Engage regularly in reviewing your life for meaning and completion. And most importantly, start recognizing that deep longing for home that exists in every human heart, the longing to return to your true nature even while you're still embodied. These aren't just death preparation practices. They're consciousness expansion practices. They're ways of living that align you with your deepest truth and highest potential. And here's something beautiful. When you live this way, death loses its terror. It becomes not an ending to be feared, but a graduation to be anticipated. Not a failure of the body, but a completion of a sacred journey. You begin to understand that you're not just a physical being who might have a soul. You're an eternal soul who chose to have this physical experience. And when the experience is complete, you return home to the vast consciousness from which you came, enriched by everything you've learned and loved along the way. The sacred perspective. Let me share something with you that might completely shift your perspective on these signs and on death itself. What if these 5 signs aren't warnings that something terrible is approaching? What if they're actually evidence of something miraculous, proof that consciousness is eternal, that love transcends death, that your deepest essence is indestructible? Think about it this way. If consciousness truly ended at death, why would there be any preparation process at all? Why would the soul begin loosening attachments, expanding awareness, and longing for home? Why would there be this gradual, purposeful preparation for something that was simply going to be nothing? The very existence of these signs suggests that consciousness continues beyond physical death, that death is a doorway, not a wall. That something in you knows exactly where you're going because you've been there before. This radically transforms how we understand not just death, but life itself. If your soul is eternal, then every experience you've had in this lifetime, every joy, every sorrow, every lesson, every moment of love, contributes to your eternal development. Nothing is wasted, nothing is meaningless. Every single moment has been part of your soul's journey toward greater wisdom, greater love, greater consciousness. And if death is actually a return home rather than an ending, then these signs aren't tragic. They're sacred. They're evidence that the universe operates with such profound wisdom and compassion that it prepares you gently, gradually, lovingly for the most important transition you'll ever make. This perspective doesn't make death trivial or easy. The loss of physical form, the separation from loved ones, the end of familiar experience, these are real and significant. But they're not ultimate. They're not final. They're part of a larger journey that your soul has been on long before this lifetime and will continue long after. And recognizing these signs allows you to participate consciously in this journey. To approach death not as a victim of biological failure, but as a soul completing one phase of an eternal adventure and preparing to begin the next. When you truly understand this, everything changes. Fear transforms into curiosity. Regret transforms into gratitude. Despair transforms into wonder. You begin to see your entire life, including its ending, as part of a magnificent design that's far more beautiful and meaningful than you ever imagined. The call to consciousness. But here's what I need you to understand. This information isn't just for people who are actively dying. It's for everyone who's alive. Because whether you recognize these signs in yourself now or not, your soul is constantly preparing you for the eventual transition. Every moment of spiritual growth, every release of ego, every expansion of love, every glimpse of your deeper nature, these are all part of the same preparation process. You don't have to wait until death is imminent to begin living consciously. You can start now. You can begin releasing attachments that don't serve your highest good. You can cultivate the solitude necessary for spiritual development. You can open your perception to expanded possibilities. You can regularly review your life for meaning and completion. You can acknowledge the longing for spiritual home that lives in your heart. And when you do this, something extraordinary happens. You don't just prepare for a peaceful death. You create a more conscious life. You align with your soul's purpose. You live from your deepest truth. You love more fully, forgive more easily, and experience more joy. The practices that prepare you for death are the same practices that awaken you to life. This is the ultimate paradox. By consciously preparing for death, you finally learn how to truly live. So let me ask you, what would change in your life if you really understood that consciousness is eternal, that love never dies, that you're a soul on a journey rather than a body headed toward extinction? How would you treat the people in your life if you knew that the love you share transcends physical existence? How would you spend your time if you understood that what you're really doing here is developing your capacity for consciousness, wisdom, and compassion? How would you face challenges if you knew they were opportunities for soul growth rather than random suffering? If you're ready to explore these questions, if you're ready to live from this deeper understanding, let me know in the comments. Write conscious if you're committed to approaching life and death with greater awareness. Because this isn't just intellectual information, it's a call to transformation. The ultimate truth. As we come to the end of our journey together, I want to leave you with the most important truth of all. These 5 signs of approaching death aren't really about death at all. They're about awakening. They're about remembering who you truly are. They're about recognizing that the physical world, as beautiful and meaningful as it is just one dimension of your existence. When you understand this, death loses its sting, not because it becomes easy or painless, but because it becomes meaningful. It becomes part of a larger story of consciousness, exploring itself through countless forms and experiences. Your life, with all its struggles and triumphs, its loves and losses, its moments of despair and transcendence, is not a random accident in an uncaring universe. It's a sacred journey undertaken by an eternal soul for the purpose of growth, learning, and the expansion of love itself. And these signs that we've explored, they're evidence that even death, especially death, is surrounded by wisdom, compassion, and careful preparation. Nothing in this universe is abandoned or forgotten. No consciousness is lost or wasted. Every soul is supported through every transition. This changes everything about how you can live your life right now. Instead of running from thoughts of death, You can embrace them as reminders of what's truly important. Instead of clinging desperately to temporary things, you can hold them lightly while investing in what's eternal. Instead of living in fear of ending, you can live in celebration of the magnificent journey you're on. You're not just a biological organism struggling to survive. You are an eternal consciousness having a temporary physical experience. You are a soul on a journey of awakening. You are love learning to know itself more fully. And death is simply the moment when you take off the costume of this particular lifetime and remember the vast, eternal, luminous being you have always been. The signs we've discussed today aren't warnings to fear. They're invitations to consciousness. They're opportunities to align with your deepest truth. They're reminders that you are so much more than you've been taught to believe. So live boldly, love deeply, grow consciously, and when the time comes to transition, know that you're not ending. You're returning home to the infinite source of consciousness from which you came and which you have never truly left. This is the ultimate truth about death. It's not the opposite of life. It's the completion of life. It's the graduation that every soul is working toward, and recognizing the signs of its approach is one of the most sacred recognitions you can have. Your soul knows the way home. Trust it. Follow its guidance, and let that trust transform not just how you face death, but how you embrace every precious moment of the life you're living right now. Because in the end, life and death are just two movements in the same eternal dance of consciousness. And you are the dancer. Dance beautifully. Dance consciously. Dance with the knowledge that every step is sacred, every movement is meaningful, and every transition is a doorway to even greater love and awareness. This is who you are. This is what awaits you. And this is why there is nothing to fear and everything to celebrate, even in the face of our most mysterious and profound transition. Welcome home, soul. You've never really left.